Hey, I'm making this video in response to a video by an African American YouTuber called Unapologetic. He made a video and released it earlier today, January 6th, 2021. It's called Jimmy Dore Shocked by Kyle Kulinski Defending AOC and the Fraud Squad. Now, I'm sorry if I sound a little bit like a broken record in my last few videos because the last three have all been about the Medicare for All forced to vote. But that's the big issue right now, so I'm going to hopefully talk about it one last time. But to avoid sounding like a broken record, I'm going to talk about it in the context of this is my message to African American voters about Medicare for All, about constitutional law, and about other things, lots of other things, all the other things. Why people still trust their government. So Unapologetic, this is the first video I've seen of his, but I agree with his criticism of Kyle Kulinski that Kulinski doesn't really know what's going on. I pointed out in an earlier video how Charlie Kirk, not that anyone wants to hear this, not that this is what you all want to hear right now, that Charlie Kirk was right. I don't remember what the topic was, but he was right to criticize Kyle Kulinski for something. Basically, I was saying Kyle Kulinski doesn't really have a firm grasp on constitutional law or economics. And frankly, Jimmy Dore doesn't either. So here's what I want to do with this video. I went to University of Wisconsin in Madison. It's like, oh, you went to a prestigious school. This is coming from a position of privilege, you might be thinking. Or, that's a really prestigious school and you should be proud. Well, you're both wrong. The liberals who taught me in college, you know, the type of people who get called communists by Fox News, they were telling me that communism doesn't work. And I was thinking, and I'm biting my lip, just thinking, oh, it probably just hasn't been successful yet. We could probably try different and new forms of communism and it could work. I was thinking that 12 years ago in 2009 when I was taking radical politics at college. So don't let anyone tell you that University of Wisconsin is communist, and don't let anyone tell you that it's, well, I came out of there libertarian. Like I went in as a, green-leaning person, progressive Democrat. I was like, Kerry's good enough if Bush sucks so bad. And then I get into like Kucinich and Ron Paul and Mike Gravel, libertarianism and progressivism at the same time in 2007. That's what I got into. So it's like, I've always just been for an alliance between everyone who's against fascism. I think that's good enough. That's what won World War II. So here's the thing. Like, I majored in political science. I didn't major in law. So I know a lot more about political theory and anarchism and third-party politics than I do about actual like procedural law or like how to actually write legislation. I've written a little bit of proposed legislation in my blogs, so it's not like I'm completely off base. And I come from a family of lawyers, so this is my wheelhouse. I want to give people a free education in constitutional law. There's all these people, and Black women specifically, because I saw them out protesting this last year, Black women who were interested in becoming law students. That's who I have in my mind when I say the following things. These schools are not going to teach you shit. They're going to teach you how to beg your government for more temporary privileges and unconstitutional programs that make you weaker and more dependent and make you more complicit with white imperialist slavery and with the cops legally killing people and legally raping people in most states. The purpose of law school is to teach you how to either fuck people over using the law or teach you how to beg the government for more temporary privileges. It doesn't teach you how to actually, I'm not sure if Article 1, Section 8, the thing that names what the Congress is allowed to do, I'm not sure that was mentioned once in all the political science classes I took at University of Wisconsin in Madison between 2005 and 2009. So you're wasting your money if you go to college. And I'm going to give you a free constitutional law education right here, right now. Read the 17 clauses and the 18th, which is the enabling clause, of Article 1, Section 8. That tells you what Congress is constitutionally allowed to do unless and until there's a constitutional amendment. And write this down if you need to. I'm not trying to talk down to you, but the top three responsibilities of the federal government are the three M's: money, mail, and military. Maintaining an army, maintaining a common currency, and establishing post roads. That doesn't necessarily mean building post offices in every town or building every road or maintaining a national highway system. It certainly doesn't mean putting military bases everywhere and having a Federal Reserve system. So we've taken those three main powers and we've gone completely overboard with it. I'll admit that the Constitution isn't perfect, but the Bill of Rights should have prevented that. If people had been following the Bill of Rights and our civil liberties, respecting due process, freedom of speech, right to defend yourself, including from police when they try to do an unwarranted search, which is what the Patriot Act is all about. Anyway, basically, what's going on here is if you keep tolerating unconstitutional programs like Medicare for All might be if they do it the wrong way. I'm not saying it's always going to be unconstitutional. I'm working on a way to make a constitutional amendment that allows federal control of healthcare and a Medicare for All system. It's limited in a constitutional fashion and doesn't take away anyone's ill-gotten wealth. Now, I'm not saying that billionaires didn't steal their wealth. Plenty of billionaires stole their wealth from the poor, but they used the government in order to do it. So that's why you have to be suspicious of your government. And that's why I get nervous when people are just like, oh, basically it just seems like they're trying to beg the government for more temporary privileges, and they don't care about how to make those privileges into rights, human rights, and they don't care about how to make them permanent. And you make them permanent through a constitutional amendment, and you make them human rights by respecting the 9th Amendment, which says that we have rights that aren't listed in the Constitution. So I know there's a lot of moving parts here, but this is the way the Constitution works. I delved into what Ron Paul was talking about from 2007, and I read the people he told me to read, like Lysander Spooner and Frederick Bastiat. I can never remember how to pronounce that. Until 2011, I was reading The Libertarian Anarchists in 2011. I've known about this stuff, and freedom fits together. There's something in freedom for everybody, every race, every religion, every political position. And if we just didn't legally authorize the theft from one group of people to go to another group of people, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. So we need to limit our calls for redistribution to the set of billionaires and billion-dollar companies which have received unfair, favorable government contracts and favorable professional regulations. And that includes Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and the whole list of companies that everybody hates. So the government stole our money and gave it to these companies unfairly when they were already the biggest companies around and didn't need any extra help, and we needed the help. But it's our determination to keep asking for help that keeps rationalizing, that keeps allowing the rationalization of things like the CARES Act. And when Bernie Sanders says 80% of the new wealth is going to the billionaires, it's like, yeah, I think he admits this. That's because it's fixed to go that way. The tax structures, not only the tax structures, but the bailouts and the subsidies. The whole purpose of the Department of Commerce and, trade protections, the Office of the Trade Representative, it's all to steal money from the people slowly so they don't notice it. Steal it from the poor people, steal it from consumers, steal it from people who are buying shit because they need shit, and giving it to companies that they know will give the best tax yields to the government. It doesn't matter whether what they're doing is ethical. The government doesn't know how to run an economy. They think you have to shove money in the hands of businesses. And basically, yeah, they are doing trickle down. Here's the thing, trickle down is not completely flawed because Art Laffer made a good point. When you tax people too much, they stop producing. And that idea has huge implications on not only income taxes, but land taxes, which I've talked about in my videos and articles about Georgism. But back to the topic of African-American voters. And I'm not going to treat you all as a monolith or say there's an African-American vote. But this guy, Unapologetic, whose YouTube video I'm talking about, well, haven't been talking about the last 10 minutes, but yeah, he seems like a very radical, progressive person, and I don't use the word radical in a negative way at all. It means you go to the root of the problem. That's what it means. So I'm just trying to say, like, he's right to say that Kyle Kulinski doesn't get it. And but also Jimmy Dore doesn't go far enough. But unfortunately, unapologetic, I'd like him to go a little farther. I'm not trying to blame anyone. I don't know anything about this guy. I've only watched one video of his, so I'm not trying to judge. But we all need to go further. This is a rant that I go into, and hopefully it'll make sense this time. In 1924, the Progressive Party, which was the biggest third party in the United States, and the Socialist Party was the fourth, the Progressive Party of Robert La Follette split from the IWW, the biggest autonomous radical union in the country at the time, the Industrial Workers of the World, which is potentially a worldwide organization that includes anyone, and it's not limited based on your workplace or trade. So it's the potential one big union. If any union was going to become the one big union, that's what the IWW could be and wanted to be and has always wanted to be. Unfortunately, that means they don't really tolerate other unions. And that's the problem with the IWW. Now, they split from the Progressive Party in 1924 based on the quarrel over whether politics was going to be a real vehicle to change things, whether they could trust the government and trust slow reform and to get these progressive reforms passed slowly over generations. Like, I'm taking forever to say this right now. Or you could just have radical unions and, deliver the smackdown to the fascist state because they're violent and they deserve it and they're crushing unions and, they don't have a right to force us to work. What did this year teach us, this past year, 2020, coronavirus? People are like, I don't want to go to work. I could get sick. I'm staying home. Fuck it. And the government accommodated everyone. I'm not sure if it was like totally legal or constitutional every time the government accommodated people. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't. Andrew Cuomo was like stealing ventilators or respirators and basically using eminent domain and like saying, oh, we'll compensate people. That was pretty messed up. It's definitely mob tactics and fascist. So there are ways, believe it or not, to provide people with affordable health care without violating the Constitution or without stealing anyone's earned wealth. What was I trying to say there? Yeah, there's ways to do it. When I say affordable health care, I don't mean you should just barely be able to pay for it. Affordable includes free. Affordable is a category that includes free. I would like healthcare to be affordable or free. Free is better. I cannot make that any clearer. So don't try to paint me as some privileged piece of shit and yeah, I have a job. I do work overtime and I think overtime is bullshit, but I do it anyway because my friends and family won't talk to me if I don't use money. My government will arrest me for trespassing if I don't use money. If I don't have money, I won't have an apartment, and I'll be stuck trespassing or else trying to be invited from one piece of private property that's government regulated, not really private, to another. If you don't use money, you're treated like a homeless person in this country. If you don't have possessions, you're treated like a possession. You're a slave until you own something. And in 48 states, you can't even fucking own the land. And, it takes, like, you have to go through a government-insured mortgage just to own a house in most cases, unless you're super rich or own an estate. Like, it's obviously rigged against us. This is a first-come, first-served property ownership system. And we have to acknowledge that a lot of that property was gained through throwing people off their land, using violence, taking people's tax money and giving it to companies so that those poor people are so poor they have to work for those companies and they go back to the estate because it's like we're just off the plantation and now they're making us go back onto the plantation. Like, I work for a golf course. That's one of the places I patrol. I work for a car dealership that's stockpiling cars. The golf course is stockpiling land. I secure a place that has respirators, desperately needed respirators. But if, like, Andrew Cuomo wants to steal some respirators, he can do it. But if I, as a security guard, want to steal some respirators from the place that I work at, the place that I spend most of my day at, I'm not allowed to do that because I haven't been elected governor, even though he's not constitutionally allowed because of the Fifth Amendment to take people's property. But no, we have to focus the struggle. We have to stop attacking and looting small businesses. I agree with how angry you are at the government, but don't take it out on small businesses. This is not me lecturing. This is not me trying to lecture black or poor people. I was fucking out there in Chicago being a lookout for cops, trying to make sure they don't bust my friends who are idiots and decided to shoplift. And by the way, you can go to a protest without stealing anything and damaging anything. I don't know if you know that. Not just saying that to black people. I'm saying that to fucking idiot white kids too. You don't have to destroy property. You can if you want to. It's like diversity of tactics. I appreciate a diversity of tactics. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just saying you don't have to destroy and steal stuff when you go to use your freedom of peaceable assembly. It's First Amendment's intended to protect peaceable assembly. And if I sound like a hard ass or a racist right now, or someone who's obsessed with the rule of law, or a fucking fake libertarian who's like alt-right or whatever, just keep in mind what the first black president, who's not really black, Barack Obama, his mother was a white woman from Kansas who was 8th cousins with Dick Cheney, and his father's an Indonesian cult leader. Link in the description. Barack Obama had a college essay that has been scrubbed from the internet. Barack Obama, in this essay, allegedly, I don't remember the source, but this was on the internet 10 years ago. He said in a college paper about civil rights that the civil rights movement went awry and went off target when they delved into lawlessness. What he was referring to was legally speaking, it was trespassing when black people integrated lunch counters that were segregated or where they're discriminating. And I'm not saying that was right, but there is a constitutional process to end discrimination on private property if you want. You have to say, look, this private property is not actually private property because they're using public, it was the Jim Crow laws. It wasn't the Jim Crow business practices. I mean, it was racist individuals who pressured the government to pressure the businesses. Well, to make a law that businesses had to segregate. Those were laws. So not every business that was doing segregation wanted to do it. They had to because it was the law. Because the white racists would have been really fucking pissed off at them if they hadn't do it. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying there's a difference between what's legal and what's right. And the more we trust people like Barack Obama and the Democratic Party and the old constitutionalist Joe Biden to tell you what the rule of law is, to tell you what's right, while they're ignoring the 9th Amendment, the 10th Amendment, due process, the Bill of Rights. Well, they're saying like, oh, don't steal the property of politicians illegally, but you deliver some platitudes about taxing the billionaires who are friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and in bed with all the top senators and the richest congressmen. They knew what Epstein was doing. They've known for 14 years at least since his first bust. If I've known for 10 years and I've known they'll never bust an Israeli sex trafficking kingpin and the Prince of Wales' brother. That's never going to happen. But look, now people are talking about it. And you know what? Epstein. Dead? No. Fucking disappeared as far as I'm concerned. The photos didn't convince me. I'm not sure if that's him in those photos. Look at the dental records. And but Prince Andrew's, he skirted the law. He skated by, whatever the fucking term is. I'm not Molly Ivins over here. And Ghislaine Maxwell, I guess they denied her plea request for $30 million, $28 million, but it's like someone's gonna get her out. She's probably living in fucking okay conditions. They're not gonna fuck up this woman too bad. She fucking trafficked kids for Disney and the British royalty. She has done her service. The government doesn't care whether what you did to get your money and pay your taxes to the government. They don't care whether that's right or wrong. They just want to take your fucking money. They don't care if it's blood money. It doesn't matter if that should be destroyed. There's Jewish Teeth. There's gold that used to be in Jewish people's teeth that's sitting in bank vaults right now in Britain because that gold was used by Germany to pay off their war debts from World War One. And you could say, like, this is my position, though, like, that gold should be buried in a Jewish mausoleum or something. I'm not some fucking gold worshipping, Bitcoin trading, fucking rich libertarian. I have about $500 of savings. Until the fucking last bailout, I had $0 worth of savings, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. I'm probably going to be living paycheck to paycheck 3 weeks from now, or as soon as I buy a car or whatever. As soon as I make my next major purchase, I'll be back to living fucking paycheck to paycheck. So don't try to paint me as some privileged shit son of a lawyer because my dad fucking molested me, and he's a Democrat. He was an influential Democrat in Lake County, Illinois. And his office is still operating, and like he's a criminal defense and personal injury lawyer, but I know that him and or the other major lawyer in his office, one or both of them are helping fathers who've been accused of molesting their children to retain custody of their children. That's what I know about the Democratic Party. I have basically, for all intents and purposes, I've been personally molested by the Democratic Party and betrayed over and over again by piece of shit neoliberal Democrats who tell me to vote for Hillary Clinton, and that if she voted for the Iraq war, it makes her not responsible because she didn't personally go over there. I don't fucking know the reason. These people have no conscience. They are amoral. They will take your money, even if it's blood money, and they will use it to buy whores or to promote their own fucking business interests. These people are evil, and these people are trafficking your children. Reminder, this video is addressed to African American voters. I saw a post recently on Instagram of a young black woman saying, why do men, I think she was dating a white man or something. She's like, why do men think that black women like violent sex or aggressive sex? And one reason is because, white people have always stereotyped Africans as wild and as animalistic. And subjugated. Second reason, subjugated them, deserving of rape, because they're inferior, allegedly. Third is because men have always oppressed women. But the fourth, and this is the newest reason, and this is what I have to contribute. Alan Dershowitz wrote an op-ed to the New York Times or something in 1995 and wrote that minority women have sex earlier, and that's one of the reasons he thinks it's okay to lower the age of consent to something like 15. It's like, maybe he's right. Maybe technically, statistically, that could be true. I don't know what study. I don't remember if he cited a study. But he defended Jeffrey Epstein at least 3 times, or at least twice. I know once in 2007, once right before he died, and maybe also in the 80s. I can't remember. Dershowitz has been a representative of Epstein for a long time. Dershowitz is accused of receiving sex or having sex with children, raping children, and he says, oh, a Russian woman gave me a massage. I never took my pants off. I'm faithful to my wife. But it's like he's one of the co-accusees of Epstein's main accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Alan Dershowitz wants to justify raping teenage girls legally and morally, because he wants to rape children, and he wants it to be okay for Washington, D.C. politicians and visiting diplomats to fuck black teen prostitutes in Washington, D.C., because that's the only way they can think of to get poor people money, is to you bend over and get fucked. Black voters. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to give you a free education on constitutional law. Write this down. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. Not talking down to you, but found in Article 1, Section 8 are money, mail, military, migration, patents and piracy, government owning land necessary for defense, post roads. That's about it. It's about it. Not mentioned in there. Things that Congress isn't allowed to do without a constitutional amendment are health, environment, energy, retirement. Sorry if I'm going fast. Most forms of welfare. That doesn't follow what they're fucking allowed to do in terms of mail, money, military, patents, piracy, courts, land necessary for defense. And they use that land necessary for defense clause. There's 18 clauses in that section. They use the fact that government can have land necessary for defense and have government offices. They use that fact to justify eminent domain, which is perverting the Fifth Amendment and ignoring the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment that says you can't have your property taken from you unless you committed a crime and go through due process. Government can't take things from you unless they convict you of a crime first. That's why they're not supposed to be allowed to take your money during an arrest, but they want it because it's blood money and they don't care. So we could be respecting people's civil liberties. And here's a thing I want to explain. They tell people in Harvard Law, don't support a law unless you're prepared to support killing people in order to enforce that law. Because guess what? Some people are always going to be willing to defend themselves if the police show up to enforce some stupid law. It might be a good law, it might be a bad law. I'm not saying, you should be able to get away with murder just because I'm not saying it's wrong to face consequences. But I'm just saying, if you just advocate for more and more laws, like if you say, hey, let's have a Medicare for all thing, force the vote, without doing something about the giant pile of shitty federal laws that I could think of 100 at least. If you asked me, if I had time to look at my fucking past writing, there's a lot of problems. We need to get rid of a lot of these old bad laws. And that's why people like Trump, get away with, I know he's a piece of shit, but he got in the White House and he gets away with what he did by being right some of the time. And that was like when he said, like, we'll get rid of 2 old bad regulations for every new one. I don't know if he did that. In fact, I'm pretty sure he didn't. But he at least said what he needed to get elected. And yeah, that's not admirable. He didn't, because he didn't do it. But the Democrats just say what they need to get elected too. And I just want to say, I was raising the alarm about Barack Obama a long time ago. Like 2010, when Rahm Emanuel came in, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I look up about him. It's like, oh, he's a fucking Israeli agent. And so is his father. And his brothers are corrupt pieces of shit too, who are fucking infiltrating our health and entertainment industries. Fuck that family. Barack Obama hired Rahm Emanuel to hire the rest of his executive branch, which is like 800 or more appointments and, hirings. That's a horrible choice. And now people realize, oh, he's defunded black schools to sell out to private interests. It's like, yeah, if you would have kicked him out or supported term limiting the Chicago mayor, like, we could have dealt with this. Like, why do you trust these people? And now, one of the, like, I think maybe the second big alarm bell for Obama was like, oh, he's nominating Tom Vilsack to be Secretary of Agriculture, the guy who got an award from Monsanto. Who Joe Biden, Joe Biden is making the Secretary of Agriculture, if the Senate confirms him, Tom Vilsack. So Barack Obama has a lot of explaining to do. Why are you supporting GMO and Monsanto politicians? I don't sound like a libertarian right now, do I? That's because I don't like corporate interests fucking over the environment and human beings and my health, because it makes my health expensive and it makes people demand a fucking Medicare for all system that's unconstitutional. That's how my thought process works. I don't want to demand new parts of government because I don't want more reasons for the government to come and shoot me for stupid reasons like that I didn't buy health insurance that year. It's like the government, they say no one's going to shoot you for not buying health insurance. It's like, well, if I find some way to avoid paying my taxes and I don't show up to court, they'll send someone to arrest me. And if I defend myself and just say that's a stupid law, I don't fucking owe you anything. You made me a citizen against my will when I was fucking born. And you tried to draft me when I was 17 and threatened my family for money so you could draft me, because the draft is still going. They never abolished it. Draft registration is still going, and the next draft will include women and transgender people, so it's inclusive with your fucking hyena, fake black Jamaican, half RSS agent vice president Kamala Harris. You're falling into another trap. You're falling into you're on a plantation. Margaret Sanger and the Klan founded this party, like the modern Democratic Party. The Democratic Party in the 1890s, the purpose was to just basically excuse the continued operation of the federal government based on, The federal government didn't give a shit about ending slavery until they realized it was costing them money. They wanted to impose tariffs on the southern ports, and those were slave territories. And the South was like, "Fuck that! We're gonna keep slavery here and keep cheap labor." And the federal government was like, we want money on that because we're gonna use the money to fucking fund our industry and make a big developed, make a big modern Union North. And then the parties switch sides, and then the Democratic Party switched to the North. Because I got news for you. People in the North who are neoliberals, they posture as Democrats. They posture as people who like black people. But they live where they live because they don't want to see any black people. And they have the thoughts of black people that they have because they don't see them often. They have stereotypical ideas of what these people are. And by the way, Oregon is a no blacks allowed. Until the mid to late 90s, it was a no blacks allowed state. You could legally whip black people for not leaving town in Oregon until like 1997 when they finally repealed that legislation. So I want you to understand how, just because a state seems liberal, if a state is liberal and it's in the North, it's often because it's like, oh, we can be liberal because there aren't a lot of black people here. If there were more black people here, we would have to be more progressive and have a bigger welfare state. But then, they do that a little bit, but it's just confined to the city. Now, I'm not trying to say that black people need welfare to survive. I'm saying the slavery supporting, child trafficking supporting, imperialist white government wants black people to have no option but the state other than to depend on them for their lives. It's like when I see black people saying force the vote for Medicare, it's like, yeah, it's unconstitutional, all that shit. But also, Jacob Blake got shot and paralyzed for sitting in his car and minding his own business, something that my 70-year-old mother does all the time when she smokes cigarettes. So everyone has to be afraid to death of getting shot to death by the police in their fucking car for minding their own business. And you're out here asking for more laws? How are laws enforced? Ron Paul said that tens of thousands of federal government employees have guns, including like fishing fucking employees. It's like, I work for the USDA. It's like, I have a fucking gun. What, are you going to shoot the fish? Why do these people have guns? It's like, oh, Joe, like this is what liberals used to say. You're trying to fire government employees because you hate black people and government's the only way that black people are ever going to get jobs. That's what fucking Democrats might as well be saying. Because, MLK led a fucking garbage strike once and he wanted the government to respect black people. So that means I have to fucking give my balls over the Democratic Party and just trust that they're going to protect black people all the fucking time. And Democrats don't believe that black people can survive without their help. That's racist. That's imperialist, progressive, eugenicist bullshit. And I would fucking rather die than include socialism or communism in that rant because those are good. Those things have been tainted by the Democratic Party. Rather, the Democratic Party has been tainted by the association with the idea that socialism and communism are evil. They aren't. It's the Democratic Party. It's the neoliberals. It's the white fucking imperialists, white people who live in northern states because they want to stay away from black people, because they're afraid of poor neighborhoods, because they say, fucking don't go to that neighborhood. They don't really want to tell you why. It's like, oh, is it because it's dangerous? Is it because it's poor? Is it because it's black or Hispanic? Like, they don't want to talk about it. That's because they're fucking racist. And it's only those types of people who become elected Democratic representatives. People who can get away with fucking lying to you. And yes, that includes AOC and the members of the squad. Remember what the Nazis did in World War II, excuse me. I say remember as if you were there. No. They would find Jewish and Ukrainian and Polish leaders and leaders of different countries that were sympathetic to German interests and sympathetic to racist interests and wanted to keep people in line and continue the rule of law and continue having a government that operates through the use of force and guns against people who just want to mind their own business and travel and work freely. And the government's like, hey, I'll find you some jobs. Get in this boxcar. Give us your guns and get in this boxcar. Submit to this travel licensing system. What do we have now because of coronavirus? Essential workers, it was more realistic 9 months ago when they were first talking about it, but I guess it's still in place. Essential workers who are supposedly treated so much better than non-essential workers, which is a fucking fascist way of thinking of things in the first place. Essential workers have to live in fear of being stopped by the cops who have, supposedly have the authority to say under the governor's orders, do you have the right to, are you doing essential travel? And I'm against non-essential travel because, I fucking keep to myself and my own business. But I'm not about to tell people you're not allowed to go out. We need to have a law to make sure you can't go out without your employer's permission. What kind of slavery bullshit is that? So it's 1 minute we're yelling, I can't breathe because, Eric Garner was one thing, but then George Floyd. So it's we've been yelling, I can't breathe for 5 years. And then we let them put a mask on us. It's if I were to tell you a year ago or 2 years ago, hey, the government is going to make black people and Hispanic people and poor people stay 6 feet away from everyone. And it's going to make them wear masks. And you would probably say that's bullshit. That's never going to happen. And I would say, well, here's what the Nazis did to the Jews. They made them submit to a gun licensing and travel permit system. And they made the Germans submit to the same system, but just gave them better rights within it. So it's what's happening now? White people in power who are rich, like Gavin Newsom, can go fucking elbow to elbow with people at a fancy dinner where the starting meal is $600. And, people at Walmart, people shopping, it's they made black and Hispanic and poor people submit to the you have to wear your mask around white people system by getting the white people on board with it too. That's all this is about. This is just about racism, if you don't understand. Coronavirus hysteria was whipped up to promote and excuse racism against the Chinese, which helps the GOP, to increase demand for a nationalized healthcare system, which helps the Democrats. And they're trying to liken people to diseases and vermin and parasites and all that toxic fascist shit that the Republicans were spewing the last 4 years. They're trying to make you feel like a disease. They're trying to make you feel like you're going to die without the government's help. You need the government's help to get you work and health care. So get into the shower and fucking give you a fucking soap bar. You know what's going to come out of that shower head? You don't fucking know. It's not going to be Medicare for all. I'm not the one making a joke. This is not a Holocaust joke. Our lives are a fucking joke. The Constitution's a joke. The Constitution's being treated like a joke because people don't understand how it works. And white racist politicians want to keep constitutional law knowledge away from black people, including even law students. That's what this is about. I'm going to give people a free education. I'm not going to tell black people how to vote. This is not Kanye West telling you to vote Republican and support Trump. I'm just saying, think of other parties. There's other parties out there. There's other parties that haven't had a chance to fuck shit up. There's parties that are truer to conservative and libertarian and progressive and socialist values, like the Green and Libertarian and Socialist and Constitution Party. These parties have had debates when the other parties have shut them out because they care about the American people's right to make an informed decision. I met the sister of Jacob Blake on the day of the election, and I was out there to support the Green Party. And she had never heard of it. The Green Party was founded 50 years ago. And there's black people out there who haven't heard of it. Not trying to shame you for not hearing. They don't fucking tell you this. Your fucking white slavery-supporting imperialist masters who are trafficking your children through the child support system, which is part of the Social Security retirement system, which gives people their SSI. They don't want you to know about third parties. They don't want you to know the Democratic Party doesn't represent true socialist-leaning, non-eugenicist, non-racist progressive ideals, instead of the progressive party ideals, the kind that split with the IWW in 1924 because they thought that having a national labor relations board that limited their ability to have fucking free strikes was the way to go. What happened in 2020? I don't want to go to work. I could get sick. I decide whether I fucking go on strike. There's no difference anymore between fucking being at work and being on strike. Everyone's working from home and everyone's fucking striking against some company or boycotting some company. The app boycott exists. People have stopped going to, businesses in person. It's like, okay, you want to smash small businesses at a protest. Diversity tactics, do whatever you want to do. But these businesses are being shut down. And who wants to go to a business in person anyway? You want to go to a restaurant in person anyway? They don't cook your food enough. You have to beg them 3 times to cook it enough. It's like, can my food please arrive on my plate hot? Can I please know that this food wasn't stored in the danger zone between 40 and 140? So restaurants don't care about you. Small businesses don't care about you, but like, should we smash them up? It's like, no, they'll go bankrupt if we just stop the government from stealing the poor people's money through taxes and fucking bailouts and regulations and subsidies and giving it to big companies and giving them, the CARES Act gave 80% of the wealth to the rich. The top billionaires made billions and billions of dollars, tens of billions in some cases. Amazon and think about this. Amazon and the protesters have a mutual enemy in the small businesses. I don't know what that means. But you think they're going to talk about that on MSNBC? You think you're going to hear original thought on MSNBC? They are not progressives. They are progressive corporatists. They are eugenicists. They believe black people and Hispanics and the poor cannot get ahead, cannot even survive, and cannot be healthy, and cannot get money. Not that you need money. They believe they can't get those things without the government. So if you free yourself from the idea that you need money to survive, that you need the government to survive, you open yourself up to the idea of boycotting the government, boycotting the 2 major parties, and stop excusing the theft from one group of people to give to another, unless they're taking it from, the top billionaires that really got most of their money through government contracts, which were illegal and unconstitutional. So I support redistribution. It just has to be constitutional. I have not stopped trying to think of ways to solve this problem. There are ways to make a Medicare for All system constitutional. Put a sunset clause on it. Excuse it under all of the things in the Constitution that remotely possibly excuse. Like specifically say the government can have fucking as much land as it wants. You can grow food on that land, and then it has to regulate that food. Then they have to fucking tell you what to eat in order you to buy health insurance and make it like, I can't inject Medicare for All into my fucking veins, people. Where's the medicine? Get rid of the patents. Make the patents shorter. The medicines aren't going to come out fast enough if you keep maintaining, they're 14 years long. Medical patents are 14 years long. I can't remember if I'm talking about medical devices or pharmaceutical drugs, but for one of those things or both, there's a 14-year patent with a 4-year extension. And they get extensions probably really fucking easily. So it's like an average 20-year patent for new medications. Is this tolerable? No. Do we have 20 years to wait for this shit? No. Well, unfortunately, we have secured those companies copyright enforcement promises for the next 20 years. So could we stop as soon as possible? Could we stop enforcing those patents? Could we agree that for every year of the next 20 years, we will decrease the length of those patents? No, because that's what Joe Kopsick's running on, and Joe Kopsick's white and outside the 2-party system, and therefore he must be racist. He's trying to deprive the public universities of their right to exploit black people's need for a fucking law school education by telling them how their fucking Constitution works. And it's just like 10 years ago when I was trying to say, y'all are still slaves because of the 13th Amendment. And everyone's like, the president's black, you're not allowed to say that. You must hate. You must hate. You must hate. You must hate. 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 Hate the Republicans. Hate white people. Hate yourself. It's like, okay, I guess I'll shut up about the fucking Israeli child traffickers and the Prince of Wales' brother who are fucking teenage girls I guess that has nothing to do with each other, but I'll just keep quiet about both of them. And I guess I'm not allowed to criticize Israel because you could just get to take my money and use it as bombs to drop it on Palestinian children's heads, and I just have to shut up. Um, and to go back to my point, you're all just asking for Medicare for all because the government sent police to shoot you to death for smoking marijuana, because the government sent you to war and made you get injuries. It's like, yeah, the government should solve the problems that it starts, but can they be trusted to? Can we trust them not to just keep those problems going so they can keep the solution going? This is why I mentioned Rahm Emanuel. He's problem, reaction, solution. He said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. You take advantage of a crisis like coronavirus to do something that you want to do, like take away people's rights and, to go in public and to congregate and practice their freedom of peaceable assembly. If you can tell people to wear a mask and that they have to walk in certain places, you can damn well control where they're allowed to protest and march. In Virginia, I don't know if this law is still in force, but 10 years ago, at least, in Virginia, it was more punishable to protest on a public sidewalk. Like, you get 25 years or something for that. But you could only get 10 years for killing people in certain situations. Some fucked up law. Virginia and Kentucky are crazy police states, but you know what? So are New York and California and Illinois. Well, not so much California, but New York and Illinois. They're killing black people in huge amounts. Like, if you look at the states that are killing the most black people disproportionately, it's not the southern states. You might want to not believe that, but it's the states that have the biggest population and thus are getting the most money, and the states with the biggest cities, New York and Chicago. I mean, they're a little less racist in Los Angeles, I guess, but New York, I'm not saying they're not racist. I'm saying the police don't kill as many black people. But New York and Chicago have huge black populations and huge police departments, and they're spending lots of money to enforce. And they don't fucking care what the laws are. They'll take whatever set of laws and they'll enforce it, and they'll send guys with guns. Chicago cop hit me in the rib where I'm injured previously. He hit me with a baton for sitting down and closing my eyes, sitting in a lotus position and waiting for a line of cops to start marching towards me. I sat down and I exercised a right of peaceful disobedience. And I got hit in the side with a police baton. It was right in front of Trump Tower, and yeah, maybe I was on private property, but like, that guy got his money from eminent domain. That guy sued other people for their fucking houses. He's a piece of shit. He got his money from the government. Yeah, you could be against him because he's a capitalist. He exploits people. Sure, he exploits people. Yeah, true. But he also uses the government to steal people's money. And he wouldn't have a way to steal people's money unless it were the government. And frankly, he would be bankrupt if it weren't for the government's bankruptcy laws. I mean, excuse me. He would be a poor or homeless person if it weren't for the government's bankruptcy laws. It's only because of government bankruptcy laws that he continues to be a fucking remotely reputable citizen in good standing. And he's barely even that. So the government's job is to keep pieces of shit afloat in this toilet that's not true democracy, because we were run by fascist white imperialist slaves like Joe Biden, who not only want to traffic your children through the Social Security child support slavery system, but he wants to pinch your children's nipples. If you get elected to congressman, black people, Hispanic people, AOC, God forbid you have children, Joe Biden is going to grind his dick against your kid's back. Well, he smiles. Well, I guess he doesn't. He has to be the vice president's cock who gets ground into the back of children because Joe Biden's not the vice president anymore and doesn't preside over congressional swearing-in ceremonies. But anyway, Joe Biden's a fucking pedophile. His brother owned land on an island near Jeffrey Epstein, and they probably know each other. These people use submarines. For all I know, the fucking Israelis are putting Jeffrey Epstein's goddamn penis in space. You notice, like right now, the government's trying to distract us from the international child trafficking rings that are run by the Israelis and the Israeli fucking, co-optation of the American government, infiltration. They're trying to distract us with Medicare for all, and the Israelis are trying to distract us by saying there's aliens. John Podesta believes in aliens. Coincidentally, John Podesta is the accused child rapist. The Israelis believe we made contact with aliens. Also accused of operating vast rings of child trafficking networks. This is not a coincidence. And if you keep asking for Medicare for all, you're just going to keep asking for the government to shoot you so that they can look good when they make you all better. It's like that I see Dead People movie where the woman's giving her daughter poison so she can wear a nice red dress at her funeral and be the center of attention. This is Stockholm syndrome. Or Munchausen. It's both. It's Munchausen syndrome with a dash of Stockholm syndrome. The government doesn't care about you. Slavery is still in place in the prisons. And since you can get arrested for fucking anything, and 90% of the people in the prisons are there for nonviolent crimes, we have slavery in the public too. And the fact that you have to usually work in order to get welfare or to get money or to get support, and the fact that the government makes us use money. You ever try not to use money? Like I said, you end up homeless, you end up without an apartment unless someone's kind enough to take care of you. And most of us don't have that in our lives. And that's because the government protects the land and the wealth of people who owned slaves and exploited people to get ahead and used government regulations to their benefit. And then the poor people have a really difficult time scraping together enough money and resources and land to make do. That's the state of affairs that we have right now. And I need to remind you, you have a president that loves the Constitution. You're going to need to understand how the Constitution works. I'm not saying the government works, but you're going to need to understand how the Constitution works. Health, environment, retirement, welfare, energy, and stealing the people's money to give it to other companies. Those are not legal. The Congress can't do those things unless and until there's a constitutional amendment. If you want to do those things, if you want the federal government, the national government, the Congress alone to do those things, get a constitutional amendment, which takes somewhere between 6 months and 7 years. You get the state legislatures to all be in support of it, and you get 3/4 of the states, that's 38 states, to say we'll make this the new 28th Amendment, that the national health care system, that the federal government will be able to control health care on a national basis, and the states won't. That's what the amendment would have to say. The government and the media and the universities don't want to tell you that because they want you to be a fucking slave who looks like an idiot out there screaming and setting shit on fire. Not that I'm against that. And fucking looting businesses. I'm kind of against that. They want you to look like a violent, crazy idiot with no understanding of the law. And you're fucking falling for it. I'm not just saying black people, and I'm not saying all black people are like this. I'm saying stupid white kids. I'm saying people who don't study the fucking Constitution. And it's like, you know, you could say, Joe, you're privileged. You've had time to study the Constitution. It's on the fucking internet for free. Go look up, like Google, Article 1. You know, I, use the letter I because it's Roman numerals. Article I-1, Section 8. There's 18 clauses. Money, mail, military, migration, patents, piracy, conducting trade with the tribes and, you know, making sure commerce, making sure there's no state borders and interstate tariffs and shit. That's what the Congress has a right to do, not much else. And if you say there should be a national healthcare system, then effectively, unless and until you get a constitutional amendment, you're effectively saying government can just take whatever it wants. It can take whatever wealth. It can just take whole sectors of, you know, whole industries and whole sectors of the economy can just be swept under the president's control. I know I've said this in previous videos, but it's not changing because you guys aren't fucking changing anything. You're just burning and looting and screaming louder and asking people to do shit that they can't legally do without being fired. You know, I would be voting against Medicare for all vote too, but like that, the vote to have the vote doesn't fucking happen because the speaker gets to decide what they vote on. But like, I'd be opposed to it too because I couldn't fucking legally take that vote without constitutionally, justly being fired. You should be fired if you fucking take that vote. So here's what I'm doing. I am proposing a constitutional amendment to the Constitution for the United States, a 28th Amendment, to have a national health care system, to prohibit the states from regulating health care. And it needs to be predicated on the idea that it's for the government's interest in promoting science. One of the clauses of Article 1, Section 8, it says the government has a right to promote useful arts and industry. It does that so it can enable a patent office and have copyrights and stuff and protect people's intellectual property for a temporary amount of time. But that's gotten out of control. But yeah, you could say maybe that arts and science thing justifies health. You could say maybe the fact that government-owned land has to do something with it maybe justifies growing some food and regulating people's health. So you could say that, but no one has ever just sat down and said, hey, here's a constitutional amendment listing all the possible authorities for the Constitution, for the Congress to regulate healthcare on a national level that we could find and justify based on Article 1, Section 8. No one has ever fucking done that. You know why they have never done that? Because they're intellectually lazy. They care more about resting on their laurels and having the government protect their intellectual property and protect their right to fucking charge you money to go on the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times instead of getting information that you need to survive for free. That's how information works. If you get fed lies, you die. If you base your life on a lie, you die. If you don't know how your government works, when it works, how it's supposed to work, you're going to die. And it's like, hey, I'll give you health care. Can I stab you first? Can I fucking send you overseas to die in a war? Go get the medicine first? It's like, hey, I'm doing you a favor. How long you want people to tell you that and expect you to just keep eating dirt and saying thank you? Please, sir, can I have another? These people are raping your fucking children. Go farm your own fucking medicine. Don't depend on these people. They want you dead. It's like Rachel Maddow said 10 years ago. She's like, oh, I guess the Tea Party think that the government wants people dead. It's like, yeah, they want you dead if you don't pay your taxes, if you don't give your kids up to the fucking draft and the child support system. Yeah, they want you dead. But you can avoid them killing you by giving up half of your property. Oh, thank God. You wonder why people fucking turn to religion and guns and cling to guns and religion like Obama said. Fuck Obama. He's not really black. He's half white and half Asian. He's a Manchurian candidate. He hired Joe Biden, the closest thing to a fucking racist slave master that we still have. Fucking Thomas Jefferson looking mullet-having motherfucker who supported, who picked Kamala Harris because she says she smokes pot and she looks dark enough to play the role of a fucking, someone who looks like they've been exploited by Joe Biden. And she has been exploited by Joe Biden. And you might say, oh, Kamala Harris, that's how to say her name. She forgave Joe Biden. I was like, no, she didn't completely forgive Joe Biden. You can look it up. It's like, oh, Joe Biden apologized for the 94 crime bill. It's like, no. Jimmy Dore exposed that he told one of the three major networks reporters that, not for a damn second. He was very stern in saying that he didn't oppose, like that he doesn't apologize for his 1994 crime bill that put 1 million black people in prison. This guy was the youngest and last of the major drug warriors, the war on drugs politicians. And Mark Whitney, the libertarian presidential candidate, exposed that in his one-man show from about 10 years ago. So Joe Biden's a piece of shit. He's a continuation of the Barack Obama administration. And that administration was racist too. Like I said, Obama was against integration of lunch counters. I mean, he was probably writing in the 1980s after the fact. And yeah, he was against laws that prohibit interracial marriage, of course, as he would be, since his mom's white and his dad's an Indonesian cult leader named Muhammad Suba Sumo Hadi Wijojo. Link in the description. So yeah, Obama's against anti-miscegenation laws, but he's not against prohibiting discrimination because he believes in the Constitution and he believes in protecting private property and respecting private property with the rule of law, just like Joe Biden does, because he believes in the Constitution. And it's because of your neoliberal Democratic politicians that you will never get a Medicare for all vote unless and until it's constitutional and or is passed through a constitutional amendment. In 2011, spring 2011, when the Occupy Wall Street protests were happening around the country, it was the last time we saw like protests in every city like that I can remember before the George Floyd protests and I guess like the maybe Trump tax protests. I don't know how many cities that was in. But it was the last huge round of protests before, the last round of protests for 10 years, Occupy Wall Street. So I was in Occupy Madison, in Madison, Wisconsin, in 2011. I was making literature saying, hey, don't put more trust in government to regulate the banks because they don't give a shit about you. Don't authorize a creation of new programs under Elizabeth Warren like the Consumer Protection Board because they don't give a shit about you and they're just going to make you instill false faith in the government that they don't deserve. It's like, when's the last time Elizabeth Warren fucking fixed the banking system? She didn't do shit. They just bought your complicity for another 10 years. So I was out there making my own literature that a friend of mine kind of inspired me to create, named Allie. And I was printing it out in multicolor fucking paper, handing it out to people along the parade route on State Street. And I was trying to get the people at the Occupy table to I'm like, hey, can you give this literature out at your table? They're like, oh, you have to talk to our people. Like, basically, they should have said higher ups, the people in charge of Occupy, because it's not a real egalitarian movement. They would have had to approve that literature, or else you can't give out a piece of literature with the word Occupy on it. You could be I was a 24-year-old activist. It's like, I can write something on a piece of paper and give it to whoever the fuck I want. This is an egalitarian movement. You can't tell me that I have to submit to hierarchy, or else you're admitting you're full of shit. So that's why I've never tolerated Democrats, because they're full of shit. And they will respect and suck the dick of and defend anyone who looks like they're a progressive, which just means if they're black or if they're Hispanic and if they're not obviously associated with the Republican Party. So this is a charade. We have a fake government run by a comedian, just like they do in Ukraine. And but here's my point. I was there in Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Madison, Wisconsin in 2011. And here's the thing. This is why I'm addressing this video to black voters. I am not ashamed to call Barack Obama racist, just like the Lyndon LaRouche people were, LaRouche Pack. They were the first ones painting a Hitler mustache on Obama and going out with signs saying Obama's a fascist. It's because I knew he supported the Wall Street big banks, because he took over and he became his executive branch became a perfect storm of Bush and Clinton financial advisors who would fuck us all over. Clinton was a triangulation strategy, and Bush started the fucking, the collapse started in the banks that Jeffrey Epstein was invested in. Let's just leave that there. But my point that I keep getting away from was, Bear Stearns, I think it was, fucking motherfucking Jeffrey Epstein. It was Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers. Jeffrey Epstein was investing in one of those banks, and those were the first two dominoes that collapsed in the 2007 financial crisis. And they had to cover it up by getting all these other banking houses to inject money into the other banking houses. And there's a domino system. There's a domino, it's a house of cards waiting to collapse, and it was all based on child sex trafficking, and they were making sure that whores had houses to live in. They made a movie about this, and now what's happening? Whores have 5 houses again. Because if you work for a child sex trafficker and you're a fucking whore and you traffic whores for other pimps and shit, they'll set you up with a house. If you take the $600 and you shut up about the government being run by child sex traffickers, they will fucking give you a little bit of medical assistance or medical debt relief. Did you know that? That if you suck the farmer's dick, he gives you more feed? Did you know that? It's a new incentive and benefits program. So get in the boxcar and take the soap bar, because everything's fine, okay? Get out of one pan and get into the other pan. Don't mind. It's slowly the temperature is going up. It's fine. No, jump out of the pan. You can't, it's not progressively going to get cooler. You're in a fucking pan. You're being roasted alive. It's like being in a fucking oven in the concentration camp and just being like, oh, let's fucking lobby for it to get progressively colder in here. Like, no, they're burning us alive. Stop trusting them. and Unapologetic, the guy who did the YouTube video that I'm commenting on, started commenting on, he was right. Don't give these people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I've been saying that for like 14 fucking years. These people are evil. We need a progressive libertarian alliance and a new party and coalition building and parliamentary systems and possibly getting rid of the Senate and stopping this tyranny. And we're going to give people trials. And I keep, goddamn it, getting away from my point. I was in Occupy Madison in 2011, and I showed this poster that I'm about to show you to a black activist named Teddy, who is originally from Ethiopia. And one of them was like, Kanye West said George Bush doesn't care about black people. Neither does Barack Obama. He's not really black. His dad's an Indonesian cult leader named Muhammad Subah Sumohadi Jojo. He's a Manchurian candidate. His mom's a whore. His mom got fucked by a fucking evil cult leader. And they had a baby. And they knew he would be president his whole life because his grandmother was on the board of the Bank of Hawaii. And she's a vice president of the Bank of Hawaii, which laundered money for the U.S. Army and the CIA, possibly, in the Pacific Theater. Yeah. He probably wasn't born inside the United States. He's probably born in Indonesia. There's no evidence he was born in Kenya. His Barack Obama Sr. doesn't even look like Barack Obama Jr. He looks like Mohammed Subah Sumohadi Jojo. Obama's not white. Excuse me. He's not black. He's half white, half Asian. That's how he can be a white supremacist. And his father was a cult leader who was trying to combine Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism. Obama's dad's a freaky cult leader who fucked his mom in possibly a fucking creepy, Messiah conceiving fucking ceremony. I don't know what the fuck these people are up to. But I do know that the CIA would start cults in the third world, like the Hand of Death cult, the Jim Jones cult. There's CIA tracks in that. There's like mafia tracks in that, possibly. The CIA recruits dissidents from formerly communist countries to assassinate politicians they don't like. John Lennon and Ronald Reagan. Look, I know John Lennon's not a politician. You get what I'm saying. World Vision International. CIA recruiting communist dissidents. The guy at the Dakota building the night John Lennon got shot. Jose Perdomo. He participated in the Bay of Pigs assassination. They're never going to tell you these things on MSNBC or on the floors of Congress. The squad is never going to tell you that the guy at the Dakota building the night John Lennon got shot was in the Bay of Pigs fucking plan. They're not going to tell you about the deep history of this country. Yeah, they'll talk about 400 years of slavery and the 13th Amendment. I was talking about the 13th Amendment 10 years ago. All libertarians were. But it was too racist to talk about it because we were using the S word of slavery, and you all weren't ready to hear that because the president was black. Well, I think I've shown that he's not fucking black, and he doesn't care about you. And Jimmy Dore has shown that he was a moderate Republican. He described himself as he would have been a moderate Republican in the mid-90s. Now you know where these people's fidelities lie, and I have never been afraid to call them out for it. I've known that there are black people who criticize Barack Obama. I've known that there are Jewish voices who criticize the Israeli occupation of Palestine. Cornel West called Obama the black mascot of Wall Street, and he is. KRS-One, the rapper, called Obama a black face on white imperialism because white imperialism needs a black face in order to get away with what it fucking does for another 10 years or 8 years. I guess 12 years if you include Biden. And James D. Manning, the Harlem-based preacher, said Obama's not black, he's white trash. It's because his mother is white trash from Kansas, whose 8th cousin is Dick Cheney. And she's a fucking whore. Obama's a son of a whore. He's a son of a whore and a cult leader. He's not black. He chose a racist. He chose Thomas Jefferson Jr., slave raper, child fucking boning in the back, Joe Biden. He supported Joe Biden, whose brother is fucking a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Barack Obama chose Joe Biden, who appeared in an anti-sexual assault PSA with Lady Gaga. Because who knows more about preventing rape than Joe Biden, who's been accused of raping 8 fucking women. Joe Biden is the new Strom Thurmond, who's the new drug warrior, the last drug warrior. Don't fucking give these people a pass just because they've gotten promotions from the black president or because they fucking smoke weed and then shit on everyone else who do and then put people in jail for it. This is not acceptable. I keep talking about the progressives in IWW. They split. Progressives are full of shit because they thought the government could help their problems. They thought government involvement in union negotiations was going to help. It didn't help. It stopped fucking strikes from being able to happen easily. It stopped new unions from being able to easily come into existence. It's not good for us. You can't just keep trusting the government to solve your problems. They will fuck your lives up just so they can they'll cut your leg off so they can stand you up and give you a crutch. So welcome to libertarianism. I'm glad that everyone is very suspicious of their government right now, but I have some news for you. You're a libertarian. The state is intrinsically violent. The state is a monopoly on legitimate force. They legitimize force. They legitimize violence. The government inherently and intrinsically makes violence a matter of legal course. They make violence the law. They legalize their own crimes. They make your use of violence illegal and their own use of violence legal. Read Max Stirner. Read Etienne de la Boetie. Boetie. These people don't care about you. They are, I hate to dehumanize them, but they are parasites. I say that because they don't work. I know it says right over me, don't fucking call people parasites. But they don't work. They don't produce anything. The government not only doesn't produce anything, they're making tax laws that make it harder for us to produce things and have jobs and keep our own money. They're worse than a parasite. A parasite doesn't destroy its host. These people are inhumane. I'm not saying they're animals or inhuman. They are inhumane. And we've got to stop trusting them because, as Stefan Molyneux says, once you see the farm, you leave it. Fucking Dorothy over this drill. Leave the farm. Leave the farm. You'll notice that you'll see that you're in a dream. This is an American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And George Carlin kept yelling, these people don't give a shit about you. These people don't give a shit about you. And Jimmy Dore plays the Carlin clip over and over again. And he tells you these people don't give a shit about you. And then he keeps telling you that he's now is like, begging for a Medicare for all, force the vote. That's going to get things. Don't even bother to do it constitutionally. Don't even bother to get an amendment first that says the federal government can regulate healthcare and the states can't. Don't even do anything that allows you to do what you're trying to do in the first place. Don't follow. You know what? Go fucking set fires and steal shit. We need black people and poor people and activists and dissidents to look crazy because that discredits them and it makes Joe Biden look good. So don't understand the Constitution. Pay someone else to tell you what the Constitution says. Don't read it yourself. Pay some fucking white imperialist, the eugenicist professor who thinks that black people couldn't learn anything if it weren't for fucking... And I'm not saying to... You know what? Don't even trust me. Don't trust me to tell you what's in the Constitution. Go read it yourself. I'm not saying fucking listen to me. You've been listening to me for 73 minutes. Not trying to talk down to anyone. I'm just saying don't just trust what these old rich fucking pieces of shit with certificates from public universities that they probably bought and they're fucking every scientist is a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Fuck these people. I don't want girls to go into STEM fields. What, so they can get raped by Jeffrey Epstein's scientist friends? Fuck the entire government. Fuck the education system. They're trying to traffic your kids and keep them away from you while you're working. Fuck the work system. They're trying to stop you from being able to boycott and strike freely. Fuck the system. Fuck the system. Fuck the system. Stop begging. Stop begging. Stop begging. Start mutual aid and direct action networks with your friends. Grow medicine on your own property. Employ yourself. Stop begging. Stop begging your government. Beg your friends if necessary, if you have to beg. But there's ways to get free education out there. You can't just keep accepting student aid money and expecting them to forgive it. Then you're on the hook. Then you work for these fucking people. This $600, this $1,200, this is hush money. I'm going to fucking take it because, maybe I'll fucking spend it on my friends. Maybe I'll give it to a homeless person. It's the only way you can justify it. But it's until there's fundamental welfare and tax reform at the same time, until we fucking fix the ability of people to have jobs and produce things and then take the money home with them at the end of the day, fixing the trade laws, We have to fit. We have to have severe, drastic constitutional reform, and it has to be through an amendment. It has to be properly authorized, or else it has to follow previously existing constitutional strictures, such as the regulation of interstate commerce, which means keeping it free to flow, letting people fucking travel and have jobs without having permits and licenses all the time, and without having to be licensed by the state in order to work like they're in fucking Nazi Germany. But no, the government wants us to give health care, and the black president's black, and they care about us. Are you fucking kidding me? These people don't give a shit about you. Like I said, they not only want to stop you from fucking, they not only want to not produce themselves, they want to make it harder for you to produce, and they're fucking trafficking your kids and pinching their nipples live on television and laughing about it. And Hillary Clinton laughing about how she got a guy off for raping a 13-year-old girl 50 years ago. And no one ever called her on her shit until a racist piece of shit, Donald Trump, said, I'll do it. You're making it really easy for Republicans to call Democrats on their shit. Get some goddamn sense. Read Article 1, Section 8. You need a constitutional amendment if you want to have national legislation on energy or retirement or welfare or health. Otherwise, you're just authorizing the federal government to take the authority away from people to fix their own communities. And we have to take that authority back by having direct action and mutual aid networks where we agree to help each other, even if it's illegal. You know, government stops churches in Iowa and other places from feeding homeless people. Fucking boycott the fucking government. Throw bottles at cop cars. Fucking drag the mayor out on his front lawn. Fuck that shit. You don't stop people from helping each other. And they have vagrancy laws in some towns that make you spend money. So you can't even legally be homeless. You can't even legally camp out. First, because you're fucking trespassing. Second, you're violating that vagrancy law. The law that says if you don't have, like some Tennessee towns, like, or whatever, other places, if you don't have enough money to stay in the cheapest motel in town that night, they can kick you the fuck out. It's like you can't live in a halfway house unless you're completely drug-free. It's like, well, that's an all-the-way house. It's like you can't have a job. And now the Democrats say you can't have a job unless it's $15 an hour. Well, it's really fucking difficult to step up 15 stairs at the same time. You used to be able to step up a half a stair or one stair at a time. But now you got to fucking parkour the shit. You can't say $15 minimum wage. You can't have that. I'm not saying because I'm racist and I'm not going to let you have it. I fucking make $13 an hour. I can't give you shit. And the federal government can't give you shit because they don't have the authority to regulate people. They don't have the authority to regulate wages in all businesses. The states they can pass their minimum wages that are above or below the federal minimum wage standards. So the federal minimum wage doesn't matter except as it applies to the lowest paid federal government worker. So when Barack Obama says we're going to have a $10.50 minimum wage, or Joe Biden says we're going to have $15 minimum wage, he's really saying for federal workers. Like, if you want $15, work for the government. Be a slave to the government if you want your $15. No, there's nothing racist about that because Joe Biden was the running mate of a black man once upon a time. And the vice president is black, kind of. And fucking shit on her Jamaican grandfather by fucking saying she smoked pot and just making Jamaican, she's made her Jamaican heritage in just a pot smoking Bob Marley caricature. Like, respect to Bob Marley. But Kamala Harris is a fucking RSS agent. She works for Indian nationalists. So does my former opponent, Valerie Ramirez Mukherjee. So does Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard's working for the Indians because there's an Indian-Israeli alliance against the Muslims. And all y'all will be fucking fighting wars for the Israelis, and we'll all be in Iran with 18-year-old girls and transgender people fighting right next to us. That's what's going to happen if you keep begging for shit that's illegal. Because the more you beg for unconstitutional shit, the more you're going to theoretically, argumentatively excuse unconstitutional shit like the Patriot Act, spying on us, drone warfare, surveillance of our fucking our enemies and our friends. We spied on European countries under Barack Obama. We brought slavery of black people back to Libya under Barack Obama, Joe Biden administration. But it's all okay because Kamala Harris's skin is fucking dark enough. What the fuck is going on? We're having this fight again because people didn't learn from Barack Obama. And if you don't learn from the shitty Democratic administrations, you're going to have a shitty, competent, fascist administration. Because I'll tell you what, there are right-wing libertarians and alt-right people and Trump-type people working together. People who respect the Constitution because they want to use it to fuck over other people. I'm not one of those people. I want to respect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and civil liberties and due process to help people, to protect their privacy, to give them fair trials, both. And just don't trust them, you know? Excuse me, I got off track. So you got to understand the Constitution to be better than these people. You have to be as competent on the constitutional matters or more in order to beat the fascists who are going to try to use law against you. Because here's the thing. In Spain in the 30s, when the socialists beat the fascists in the election, the fascists lost their shit. They're like, what? We're out of power? And they did a revolution. So the fascists became the anarchist revolutionaries who deposed a legitimately elected government. And they did that because that government were a bunch of socialists who wanted anarchy. They're like democratic socialists who were going to abolish the government, thus leaving the fascists powerless. You know, it's like the church and the army and the fucking conservatives were just like, how do we fucking convince poor people to suck our dick and give them our children and keep, you know, giving the church their money and leaving the kids in the baby hatches so the priests can fucking rape them or whatever. That's what was happening in the Spanish Civil War. The church, like, it was the government and he was stealing people's kids. And the socialists were like, fuck this shit. And they shot some fascists. And George Orwell was like, I want to shoot some fascists. Who will let me shoot some fascists? And like Stalin's like, I'll help you. And I was like, cool, I want to shoot fascists right in the fucking nose. And people were like, oh, Orwell's a piece of shit because Stalin's a piece of shit and Stalin's a socialist fascist. It's like, well, you kind of have to be a little bit of a militant, not a fascist, to stand up against nationalists and Nazis and, you know, religious conservatives who are trying to shoot you in the fucking face and make you submit and make you so poor that you have to give your kid to the church or fucking put them in the factories. That's what's at stake here. Don't be afraid to support radical and progressive and socialist and communist causes. It's a shame that people like Angela Davis and Noam Chomsky supported, you know, John Cusack supported Joe Biden. And like people are trying to be like Marianne Williamson, you know, supported Bernie Sanders. Like, yeah, maybe she did. But she also made plenty of fucking excuses for Joe Biden too. And I remember that because I was like, you're a woman. He's raped 8 women. What are you fucking talking about? So, yeah, like I said, don't be afraid to support socialist and communist causes. Just make sure they're actual socialists and communists who are going to stay that way forever and not turn around and support Joe Biden someday because, oh, we had a fascist come out and, like, don't enable the rapists, okay? Don't enable rapist, fascist, imperialists like Donald Trump by having Hillary Clinton, super predator, defend fucking people who raped children in the 70s and laughs about it. And now we have Kamala Harris who puts people in jail and laughs about it. She's a new Hillary Clinton. Biden's the new Jefferson and he's a new Barack Obama. He's a new racist slave master. And yes, I'm shitting on Jefferson. I don't care who in the Libertarian Party I upset. He was a racist, rapist, slave master, and I'll say that. I am not afraid to tell it like it is. And you know what? I might fuck up and say something racist and privileged and white and stupid every once in a while. But you know what? People are going to know that the overall message is black people, stop trusting the government. They want you to be a federal employee so they can pay you just above dog shit because they think that's the only way you're going to be better than a slave. And they want you to go into the military so they can use you as cannon fodder. And they can bring back black slavery to Libya. That's what happened. So just stop begging. You're better than this. Think of it this way. What did Barack Obama do for black people that they couldn't have done for themselves. Nothing. If you say anything, you're saying that black people couldn't have done that. They couldn't have achieved health. They couldn't have achieved wealth. They couldn't have achieved a stagnated home ownership rate of 64% without Barack Obama's help. Because that's what he achieved, stagnation. You know, home ownership rates didn't increase for black people under Obama, and I'm pretty sure homelessness did increase among black people. Because a lot of people lost their mortgages. Entire families got thrown out on the street. I met a man and his wife and their dogs who had lost their children. The government had taken their kids away from them because the landlord had gambled their money away, their mortgage money. Government will offer all kinds of they'll offer you all kinds of shit just so they can yank it away from you. Barry Goldwater or Carl Hess, I've said this in the previous videos, a government powerful enough to give you everything you want is also powerful enough to take it all away. You've got to stop trusting these people. These people don't give a shit about you. And I mean it. Jimmy Dore needs to mean it. He needs to play that. The whole Jimmy Dore show should just be the George Carlin clip of they don't give a shit about it. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. So tune into the new Jimmy Dore show, the Joe Kopsick show, where I'll give you a free education that the prestigious communist University of Wisconsin didn't fucking give me. They didn't do shit to fucking explain what was going on in the world. They gave just a brief overview of constitutional law, just enough to know how to let the government rule your life, control your life, how to excuse the government intruding into industries and sectors of the economy that has no fucking business in whatsoever, one after another, piling on top of each other. Eminent domain, land, food and drugs, health insurance, and they can fucking tell you to eat broccoli, and next thing you know. And next thing you know, a mask is on your fucking face. It wasn't the broccoli, it turned out to be the mask. And there's bacteria in that mask. And they're selling all this shit on TV like, get your vitamin C and vitamin D and get your zinc. It's like, yeah, that's correct. But drink your quinine, drink your tonic water. It breaks down into hydroxychloroquine. And if you get enough sulfur in your system, your body will just put that shit together. I'm pretty sure it'll put that shit together. You need to have shit in your body that's available to fight off diseases. And there's a bunch of bullshit nonsense, medical nonsense is being fed to people. Like the idea that viruses are alive. They're not alive or dead. They're either active or inactive. They only look like they're alive when they come in contact with another living thing. They're not alive. They're zombies. So when you see, oh, this product kills viruses. No, it fucking doesn't. So maybe what's costing us so much money on healthcare is not, I mean, yeah, it's the lobbyists and the big pharma, but it's also the politicians, the medical bureaucracy, the medical administrators, people whose job is just to make it more affordable. Like people who, there's people going to college and taking college loans to become medical administrators just so they can budget hospitals. It's like, well, I think I see your problem right there. Why don't you get rid of the medical administrator who's making a 6-figure salary and use market prices to set everything else? Like, for fuck's sake. But no, the market prices are fucking rigged because we have long patents. So the point is, medical costs are high because the government is lying to people through omission or through just being stupid. They don't fucking actually regulate the consumer products to make sure they're not lying to people about whether the viruses are alive or not. This is a complete lack of responsibility. But, it's not just the government who could solve this problem of consumer labeling. The people could demand something better. But, of course, they're not going to do that because they're too fucking stupid. They don't know that there's something wrong with the products because, the product says it's fine. The people from the Aspartame Awareness League, which promotes aspartame, says that it's fine that aspartame breaks down into formaldehyde and preserves your body while you're sitting there drinking your soda. Like, that's not going to cause a ton of other problems. The product says it's fine. It's like, oh, the government assured us that there's no wrongdoing. To ask the government if we have any further complaints. Just stop. They don't give a shit about you. They want to traffic your children. You got to stop asking for medical care and start researching medicine yourself. I believe in you. Biochem is not that difficult.